every year during this time, I get obsessed with making pies. Pies. Sometimes it gets out of hand. So I thought, why not at least make a playlist for you guys with all kinds of different pies that I'll be making. So I wanted to start this playlist with a rich and creamy butternut squash pie. For the butternut squash, you're going to cut it in half, scoop out all the seeds. Now put the butternut squash in a pan inside down, because you want the peel or the skin of the butternut squash to protect it while it's cooking in the oven. So put your butternut squash into 180 Celsius, that's 350 Fahrenheit preheated oven, and then let it cook for about 45 minutes, 1 hour. Depending on the size of your butternut squash, the cooking time will vary. So for the crust, we're going to add 1 cup, that's 150 grams of all-purpose flour, and half a cup of pastry flour, and that's 60 grams. Now the pastry flour is going to give us that tender and nice crust. So add 1 tablespoon of sugar, and sometimes I like to use vanilla sugar, and it's just, I take the vanilla pods that I have left over and I put them in a container of sugar, and after a few weeks the sugar starts to have that vanilla scent and flavor. So that's a really easy way to do it, and it gives your pastry lots of flavor. Half a teaspoon of salt. Now you're going to take all the dry ingredients, sift them, and add them to the food processor. And now we're going to add the fat to our crust. And some people swear by adding only shortening, and some swear by adding butter. What I like to do is take the butter for its flavor and add the shortening to add flakiness to the crust. So I take 65 grams, that's 1/3 of a cup of butter, and I cut it into cubes and chill it right about 15 minutes right before I use it. And then I add 3 tablespoons of shortening. And for me, from my experience, that's the right amount to give me a beautiful crust that is flaky but still delicious. Add the butter and the shortening and pulse until you get the texture of crumbs. And now you're going to add 1 tablespoon of lemon juice and 1 egg. And the egg should be in room temperature. And then mix them well together and add to the food processor while it's running. Here I didn't need any water because I got the water from the egg and the lemon juice. Now take the dough and press it into the saran wrap so you don't make any mess, and then put it in the fridge to chill for at least 30 minutes. Now for the butternut squash, once it's done in the school, just scoop out about 15.5 ounces, that's 430 grams, and that's about 2 cups of squash. Put it in a bowl and stir it with a spoon, or try to kind of puree it with a spoon or a fork. And now for the filling, and it is honestly the same filling that I would use for a pumpkin pie. So I take 3 eggs, break them in a bowl, and you want your eggs to be room temperature. And then we're going to use a whisk and whisk the eggs very well to kind of break the yolk, and so it will blend very well with the rest of the filling. And then you're going to add 3/4 cup of brown sugar. We're going to add the squash puree. So now for the spices. And what I like to use is 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ginger, 1/8 of a teaspoon of cloves, 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, 1/4 of a teaspoon of allspice, and then I like to just grate about 1/4 teaspoon of fresh nutmeg. And then we're going to add a splash of vanilla, maybe around 1 teaspoon, a cup, that's 250 ml of evaporated milk. And now we're going to mix all the filling together, all the ingredients, and we're not to over mix the ingredients. You don't want to have cracks in your custard when it's baked. Now that the filling is ready, put it aside and start working on your crust. Take the crust out of the fridge and then dust your work surface with some flour, dust the rolling pin, and then start rolling. After you roll out the dough, place it into the pie pan, and with 2 fingers on one side and 2 on the other side, you can make a fluted edge that will give you that rustic look. I am not going to blind bake the crust, so what I like to do before I bake it, I put it in the freezer like that before I add the custard, and I let it chill for about 15 minutes to 30 minutes. until I know it's going to hold very well the custard. So after 30 minutes, take the crust out and pour in the filling. Once you pour in the filling, put it in an oven of 400 Fahrenheit oven, that's 200 Celsius, for about 10 minutes. And then I reduce the oven to 350, and that's 180 Celsius. Total of 45 minutes. So another tip to have a beautiful custard that doesn't crack is to take out the pie when the middle section of the custard is still jiggly. You don't want to take it out when it's fully set, because the next day it's going to start cracking. Usually it would take about 45 minutes, but people have different ovens, so always check on the custard. I would say after 40 minutes, start checking on the custard and make sure your oven is well preheated before you put your pie. Now, and this is the hardest part, you're going to let it set for at least 6 hours or overnight. So this is the butternut squash pie that I made yesterday, and look at that. The edges are golden brown, they hold their shape, and look at that custard. It's perfect, it's well set, no cracks, and it's not greasy or anything like that. So now, of course, I have to do the taste test. So now, let's dig in. Okay, let's see. So with a sharp knife, I'm going to cut it. I slightly broke the crust. I like to serve it with a dollop of homemade whipped cream. This is cinnamon flavored whipped cream. Look at that. Pretty. This is for you. Wow. This is good. Oh, the crust is perfect. It's tender and flaky. The custard is creamy and well balanced with the spices. It's just perfect. John and I had our first Thanksgiving this year here in China, and we invited some of our friends over. And then this is what I had as a dessert. They loved it, and I promise you, if you make this, everyone is gonna love it. It just has everything. Amazing crust with beautiful, creamy and rich custard. So I hope you stay tuned for the rest of this playlist. Is going to be all about pies, and the next video I'm going to be making an apple pie. So don't forget to subscribe, and I hope to see you soon with another delicious recipe. Bye!